The lights dimmed, cameras rolled, applause erupted from the studio audience as the familiar theme music of The View faded into the background. Seated in the center of the panel, Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward with a welcoming smile and addressed the audience with her signature calm authority. "Today," she began, "we're joined by a living legend, a man whose films have defined action cinema for decades. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, also subscribe. Please welcome the one and only, Tom Cruise." The applause swelled as Tom walked onto the stage with his trademark megawatt smile. Clad in a sleek black suit, every step exuded confidence. He waved, hugged a couple of the hosts, and settled into his seat like someone who had done this 1,000 times, and he had. "Thank you for having me," Tom said, beaming. "It's always a blast to be here. I'm incredibly proud of this new project, and I think people are going to be blown away by what we've put together." Whoopi nodded. "Well, we're thrilled to have you. Mission impossible. Reckoning is smashing box office numbers worldwide. That stunt with the motorcycle, people can't stop talking about it." Co-host Sarah Haynes leaned in, visibly excited. "I need to know, was that really you riding off a cliff?" Tom chuckled. "Yes, that was all me. We trained for months. It was one of the most intense things I've ever done. The team had to coordinate wind conditions, terrain safety, camera angles. It was a massive undertaking, but nothing beats capturing that moment for real. No green screens, no stand-ins, just commitment." "You're fearless," added Ana Navarro. "Seriously, how do you keep doing these physically punishing stunts after all these years?" Tom smiled humbly. "I appreciate that, but honestly, it's not about being fearless, it's about preparation. I have a responsibility to the audience. They come to the theater expecting something special, and I want to give them everything I've got." There was an ease to the conversation, the host laughing, Tom effortlessly navigating between modesty and passion. The energy in the room was warm, familiar, controlled. Then the shift came. Joy Behar cleared her throat, the sound cutting through the lighthearted chatter like a blade. "Tom," she began, her tone cooler than the rest, "everything you've said about your movie is fascinating, but I think a lot of our viewers are also curious about something else, something that's followed you for quite some time." The atmosphere in the studio tightened. Even the audience, so recently clapping, now fell into uneasy silence. Tom's posture straightened. He offered a polite but guarded smile. "Okay, what would that be?" Joy didn't hesitate. "Your affiliation with Scientology. It's no secret that you're one of the most high-profile figures associated with the organization, and over the years, there have been some serious accusations linked to it. Abuse, harassment, manipulation. Don't you think as a public figure, you have a responsibility to address those concerns?" Tom blinked, his smile dimming but still intact. "With respect, Joy, I came here to talk about my work as an actor and filmmaker. My personal beliefs, they're personal. I've always believed people should be free to explore their own paths." Joy leaned forward, unmoved. "But when your personal beliefs become public influence, especially with the reach you have, doesn't that make them fair game? Some of these allegations aren't just headlines. They're testimonies, legal cases, even FBI investigations." Tom's expression grew tense. Still seated, he clasped his hands together and spoke slowly. "Allegations are not facts. I've never engaged in, nor condoned, any abusive behavior. I've always stood by transparency and choice. It's deeply unfair to come on a show to promote a film and be blindsided with a personal attack." Whoopi tried to interject, sensing the collision course ahead. "Maybe we can circle back to the movie, Joy. There's a lot more to get into." "No, Whoopi," Joy interrupted. "I think it's important we don't just gloss over this because it's uncomfortable." Tom's jaw tightened. This feels like an ambush. Joy didn't flinch. "It's a question, one any serious journalist would ask. You've made statements in the past that raised eyebrows, dismissing psychiatry, calling it harmful, even publicly criticizing people for taking prescribed medications. That affects real people." The tension in the room had transformed into something more volatile. The live audience, unsure of how to react, sat frozen. The air between Tom and Joy was thick with unspoken challenge. "I've never told anyone what to do with their health," Tom said, voice lower, more deliberate now. "I've shared my experience. That's it." Joy shook her head, holding up a sheet of paper. "I've got transcripts, Tom, verbatim quotes where you dismiss the entire field of psychiatry as pseudoscience. This isn't just about experience. It's about using your influence to push a narrative that could harm people who are struggling." Tom's composure remained, but barely. Joy, twisting my words doesn't make your argument stronger. I've never claimed to be a medical professional. I talk about what worked for me. I've said that many times. Yet millions listen to you, Joy said, voice rising. And many take your word as gospel. That's not just personal, that's public responsibility. Tom leaned back in his chair, the charm gone from his face. You invited me here to discuss a film hundreds of people worked on, and instead, you're dragging this into a debate based on assumptions, headlines, and your personal opinions. Joy shrugged. Call it what you want. I will call it accountability. There was a long pause, the kind that doesn't just silence a room, but swallows it whole. Tom stared at her. This isn't journalism, this is provocation. Sarah looked down at her cue cards, clearly uncomfortable. Anna shifted in her chair, her usual confidence visibly shaken. Whoopi, finally reclaiming control, gestured toward the producer's booth. Let's take a quick break, please. But the storm had only just begun. The studio lights stayed bright, but the energy had turned cold. No commercial break came fast enough, and though producers were signaling from behind the cameras, it was clear. Neither Joy nor Tom was backing down. Tom sat forward in his chair now, both hands on the table. The usual sparkle in his eyes had dulled, replaced by something steelier. Focused, guarded, Joy flipped another page of her notes, undeterred. Tom, let me ask you this directly. Do you still stand by your statement that there's no such thing as a chemical imbalance in the brain? Tom exhaled through his nose. That statement was taken out of context. What I said, and what I've always said, is that people deserve to be informed. There are alternatives. People should ask questions, not just blindly accept what they're told. Joy didn't blink. So you're saying science is optional? No, I'm saying people deserve autonomy over their own lives, Tom said firmly. There's nothing wrong with questioning systems, especially ones that have failed people in the past. Failed people, Joy repeated with a raised eyebrow. You mean like psychiatry has failed people? Tom glanced toward Whoopi, almost as if to appeal to reason, but Whoopi remained quiet this time, her arms crossed, gaze heavy. Joy pressed on. Because when you went on national television and told a postpartum mother that her use of antidepressants was misguided, you weren't just questioning a system, you were undermining a woman's medical care. Do you know how dangerous that is? That is not what I said, Tom shot back, his voice louder now. I shared my view on alternative treatments. I never told anyone what to do with their health. I was speaking from my own understanding. You told Brooke Shields she was wrong for taking medication. You said vitamins and exercise were enough. Tom leaned in, voice clipped. No, I said they can help. They helped me. That's not the same as telling someone to throw away their prescription. But that's how it sounded to millions of people watching. Joy snapped. You're not just some guy talking about his journey. You're Tom Cruise, one of the most recognizable figures in the world. Whether you like it or not, your words carry weight. So when you talk about mental health like it's just a matter of willpower, people listen. A silence hung heavy over the room. Tom shook his head slowly. It's easy to cherry pick quotes. It's harder to have an honest conversation about nuance. Joy's tone grew sharper. Is it nuance when former members of your religion describe being harassed, stalked, or cut off from their families? When they talk about being punished for seeking mental health care? Is that just nuance? Tom's eyes narrowed. You're referencing people with personal vendettas, disgruntled ex-members looking for attention. That's a convenient defense, Joy said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Paint everyone as bitter or unstable, and suddenly you don't have to engage with what they're actually saying. Tom turned slightly in his seat, looking now not just at Joy, but at the audience, the cameras, the nation watching. Let me be clear, I believe in self-discipline. I believe in taking responsibility for your life. That doesn't mean I don't support people seeking help. It means I encourage them to be proactive, to ask questions, to find solutions that truly work for them, not ones pushed by pharmaceutical companies or driven by profit. Joy leaned back, shaking her head. So now it's Big Pharma, that's the enemy. If you're going to reduce everything I say to headlines, then there's no point in continuing, Tom said. His voice wasn't raised, but the tension underneath was unmistakable, a taut string threatening to snap. You came on this show to sell a movie, Joy said, her voice rising again. But what you didn't expect was to be asked about the consequences of the platform you've used for years. The same platform where you dismissed doctors and defended an organization many consider a cult. Tom froze for a second, eyes narrowing. That word, cult, is thrown around by people who don't understand what they're talking about. No, Joy said, it's used by people who've lived through it, people who were silenced, disconnected, and pushed to their limits, emotionally, psychologically, sometimes even physically, and they were part of the same organization you promote every time you step in front of a camera. This is absurd, Tom said. You've turned this into a courtroom. I came here to talk about a film that hundreds of hardworking people dedicated themselves to, and instead, you're launching an inquisition. I'm holding you accountable, Joy replied, cool and deliberate. That's what we should be doing with anyone who has influence, especially when that influence can affect lives. Tom looked around at the panel. Is anyone else going to speak up, or are we just going to pretend this is normal? To invite someone on your show and then attack their personal beliefs for ratings? Sarah looked deeply uncomfortable. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Anna cleared her throat, then spoke cautiously. Tom, she said, I think you have a point about context, and I do believe people should be able to speak about their own beliefs. But I also think the way things are phrased, especially around mental health, matters a lot. Tom nodded slowly. That's fair. I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives. I'm not a doctor. I'm an actor. I've made choices that work for me. All I've ever done is encourage people to explore different paths. And yes, I support an organization that helped me in my life. That's my truth. But when that organization has been linked to abuse, Joy interrupted, you don't think you have a moral obligation to speak out? Tom's expression hardened. Not when those links are built on hearsay and half-truths. Joy's voice sharpened. So all those people, the ones who left, who lost families, who say they were harassed, they're all lying. Tom's voice was quieter now, but sharper than ever. They're telling their version. That doesn't make it the truth. And your version is? Joy asked. My version is that I've found purpose, discipline, and success through something I believe in, and I won't apologize for that, Tom said, voice steady again. You don't have to agree with it, but you don't get to demonize me for it. Joy folded her arms, unmoved. So you won't answer? Not really. I already have, Tom replied. You just don't like the answer. The silence that followed was more deafening than any shouted argument. Then, quietly but clearly, Whoopi spoke. This interview is no longer about a movie, and that, everyone knew, was true. The silence after Whoopi's comment hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Tom shifted in his chair, clearly wrestling with whether to stay seated or walk off the set. Joy, by contrast, looked emboldened, sharper now, energized by the confrontation. She leaned forward again, voice calm but cutting. You know, Tom, for someone who claims to value honesty and transparency, you've been dodging some pretty simple questions. Tom's eyes narrowed. What you're calling dodging, I call protecting my dignity. I came here expecting professionalism, not a cross-examination. Joy shrugged. If that's how you see it, but the public deserves answers. You've spoken out against psychiatry. You've criticized widely accepted treatments. You've aligned yourself with an organization that punishes members for stepping out of line. These aren't footnotes, Tom. These are patterns. Tom sat still, his posture tense but composed. And again, you're misrepresenting everything. I haven't told anyone how to live. I've spoken about what's worked for me. The rest, the accusations, the tabloid narratives, that's noise. You're adding to it. Joy raised her voice just slightly. Is it noise when people say they were stalked for leaving your organization? When families are broken apart because someone dared to question the doctrine? You don't know what you're talking about, Tom said, his tone sharp, no longer hiding his fury. Oh, I've done my research, Joy replied. I've read the affidavits, talked to former members, not disgruntled, not bitter, just people with stories, painful stories. And what they describe doesn't sound like the noble belief system you're defending, Tom snapped. You talk to ex-members with agendas. You want to pretend that's objective journalism? It's not. It's a setup. It's the truth, Joy countered, unwavering. And your unwillingness to acknowledge even the possibility of harm. That's what concerns people. Tom leaned in. Don't talk to me about concern. You're not concerned. You're hostile. You've turned this interview into a trap, and you're hiding behind the word accountability like it's a shield. Because that's what this is, Joy said. Accountability. You've never faced a serious challenge to your beliefs in this kind of public setting, and now that you are, you're defensive. No, Tom said, standing up now, voice raised. I'm done. You want to talk about dangerous behavior? You ambushed me on national television and smeared my name under the guise of journalism. You think walking away makes you look better? Joy asked, still seated. Because it doesn't. It just confirms that you can't handle the hard questions. Tom stared down at her, eyes burning. You didn't ask questions. You made accusations. You insulted me, disrespected me, and tried to turn this into a circus. Maybe it was always a circus, Joy replied with a tight smile. And maybe you're just another ringmaster who can't take the spotlight when it turns back on him. Whoopi stood up now, her voice firm. Enough. Tom, please sit down. Joy, pull it back. But it was too late. Tom turned to the camera crew. Is this how daytime TV works now? Invite someone in, pretend it's a conversation, and then gut them for views? The producers behind the scenes were scrambling. Studio staff had started to move quietly toward the set, sensing things were close to spiraling out of control. Joy stood now too, facing him. You've lived in a bubble for decades. No one questions you. And when someone finally does, you act like you're being attacked. Questioning is fine, Tom said. But this wasn't that. This was a hit piece with makeup. There was a beat of silence, then Joy said, her voice low and deliberate. Tell me, Tom, how do you justify promoting a system that cuts people off from their children? How do you live with that? Tom froze, his fists clenched. You crossed a line, he said. Joy didn't back down. It's public knowledge. You haven't seen your daughter in years, and many people believe your beliefs had everything to do with that. So I'm asking, is that the price of loyalty to your organization? The audience collectively gasped. Even the co-hosts, who had remained cautiously quiet, shifted uncomfortably. Tom's voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. My relationship with my daughter is none of your business. When your choices influence thousands of other families, Joy said, it becomes everyone's business. No, Tom snapped. That's where you're wrong. That's where your arrogance shows. You think because I'm in the public eye, you own a piece of me, but you don't. You don't know me. You've never tried to understand. You only came to attack. And you, Joy fired back, have never taken responsibility for the real-world impact of your words. That's not privacy, that's evasion. Tom took a step toward the panel, not aggressively, but with intensity that was unmistakable. Security, already on edge, began to move closer to the stage. Joy didn't budge. Go ahead, walk off. It'll just show everyone who you really are, a man who runs the moment things get uncomfortable. Tom looked at her like he wanted to say 1,000 things and hold back none, but instead, he spoke with cold precision. You want a headline? Fine, here it is. This isn't journalism. This isn't integrity. This is a rating stunt fueled by ego, not truth, and I won't be a part of it. Then he reached down, ripped off his microphone, and tossed it onto the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Security moved in as Tom turned and walked away from the panel, his stride measured, but clearly powered by adrenaline. Cameras tried to follow, but producers began shouting to cut the feed, to go to commercial, to do something. Behind him, Joy's voice called out one last time. Running away, Tom, just like always? Tom stopped at the edge of the set. He turned halfway, just enough so his voice could carry back across the room. I'd rather run from this farce than stay and validate it. Then he disappeared off camera, leaving silence in his wake. Joy turned back to the panel, trying to reclaim control. Well, I think that speaks for itself. But no one answered her. Not Whoopi, not Sarah, not Anna, because what had just happened wasn't a conversation, it was a detonation. If you like this video, then subscribe.